questions and things written down, but like there's no one direction that we have to go with any of the conversation. So if anything that you particularly want to talk about, feel free. But yeah, we can just kind of get right into it. How did you end up in Olivet?
Well, I can put it in 2 words: death and a compass. Now, I'll explain that. I was out in the University of Wyoming doing my doctoral work. My wife's father died, and she wanted to move back to be with her mother. And so I dropped out of school and came back and didn't have a job. I had a wife, a son, and no job, no prospects. And so I wanted to teach, and I knew this was in July. And in July is not the time to go looking for a job, and not in teaching. But I was desperate, so I decided I would put a compass point in our hometown and draw a circle. And anywhere within that circle would be close enough to go back, visit the relatives, and go back home in one day. And so I did that. And then I went and got a book that had all the colleges and universities in the nation, read up on the small ones. I knew I couldn't get a job at a university, it would be too big. I mean, they wouldn't have an opening at this time. I had to count on someone dying or some problem. And so I just drew this circle, and then I sent letters out to all the colleges in that circle and got a response from Olivet. Now, I had no scientific reason for drawing the circle. I mean, I just thought, well, it looks like I could make it. Olivet was on the very edge of that circle. If I'd drawn a 1/4 inch smaller, I would never be here. But it was right there, and I got a telegram from the dean, call me. So I called him on Wednesday, he said, can you come up on Friday? I went up on Friday, had an interview, he called me on Monday, said I had a job, went up Tuesday, signed the contract. I got one other letter back about a job, but that was another month away. So I mean, I'd already accepted Olivet. I was just happy to get a job in late July. So it was fortuitous that I came here. Unfortunately, my wife's father died, but because of that, it put everything into motion. And we lived in South Dakota. We were living in Wyoming. We thought we might stay there, maybe Montana, but we came back here. We came here and we said, well, you got to stay at least 2 years to prove that you can get rehired. We don't want to stay more than 3 years because we want to get back to the West. Well, that was in 1965. So 59 years later, we're still here. Never went back. Only on vacations. We go out there all the time. But.
So what exactly about this place kept you here?
Well, when I came here in 1965, it was the dean was so excited, not because I was here, of course, but because we just hit 600 students. College was growing. 600 students, he was so pleased. And it was an exciting time in that sense. But I like small towns. And we bought a house a month and a half after we moved here, and we liked it. I liked the town. I liked the small college. Wish I'd gone to one. I went to Indiana University, which was a fine school, but you know, it's 35,000 people or something. Here it's 600. And when I came here, of course, the last half of this building wasn't built yet. The Mott building wasn't up. And so they were tearing down the old Mather Hall and going to build this new building. And so it seemed like kind of, again, an exciting time. And so then our son got old enough to go to school. Then we had a daughter, and she went to school. And it's one of those things that the roots start growing. And so you wind up getting rooted here. But we love the town. You got cities near us that are big if you want them. You got a small town. And so we just love it here.
So you said you knew you wanted to teach. Was there any part of growing up or your upbringing that led you to teaching? No. In school, I just wanted to get out. In high school, I got out in 3.5 years because I didn't like it. I went to summer school so I could cut a semester out. I got out in 3.5 years and was working as an assistant produce manager in a food store. My brother was going to college,
and he talked about it, and it sounded interesting. So I thought, well, I'll try a couple of classes. I tried those 2 classes, liked it so well, I quit my job, started going full-time, went and got my undergraduate degree, went straight into the master's degree, went straight into the PhD. I didn't stop. I was like addicted to school, and so I just kept going. When I started school, I know today they want you to have a major and everything your first semester here or something. I didn't know what I wanted. I just wanted to go to school. And while I was at school, I met my wife. She was going to be a teacher. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. And so I got into education. Well, I was graduating. I was 6 weeks away from graduating. And I didn't want to teach secondary school. I had trouble with my supervising teacher. He had a stroke and he was difficult to get along with, and I was warned he could be a problem. And so with that, I said, I'm dropping out. And 6 weeks away from graduating, I dropped the major. I wasn't going to be a teacher anymore. So then I had to stay another semester. I had to go to a 2-week summer school, or the regular summer school, a 2-week summer school, learn German, take some extra courses, all to get my degree. So I shifted from a social studies teacher to just a straight history major. Well, I thought, a bachelor's degree doesn't get you much anymore. This was in '65, so get you more then than it would now, maybe. But I thought, well, I should get a master's. I like history, so I went and got a master's in history. While I was on the master's in history, they wanted me to grade papers. I was grading exams for professors. I just had my bachelor's and working on my master's, but I was grading exams and did some research for them. And then there was an opening at Wyoming. They just started a new PhD program. And so I thought, well, okay, I'll try that. It's the West. I like the West. They got the second best Western history collection in the United States, so it'd be a good place. So I went there and I got a teaching assistantship. So then I was teaching classes, and I just liked teaching the classes. And again, grading the exams. And so I thought, well, it's kind of natural. And so I just wanted to be a teacher. I had no other job prospect that I was interested in. So teaching was the one thing that just thought, I've done it, I like it, I'll just try it. If I couldn't get the teaching job, then I don't know what I would have done, but I got the teaching job, fortunately, and stayed here 50 years. So, teaching 50 years, stayed here 59. But.
How would you describe your teaching style?
Well, to me, history is a story, and so I just try to tell it as a story. Somebody once said I was like their grandfather telling stories. It just went on, and I just tried to connect everything, and I tried to bring out like anecdotes or little interesting facts. I didn't want to just, this is the treaty, these are the provisions, this is the, I wanted to make it something that was alive, that you could really feel the period. And so I would bring in interesting things. The students seemed to enjoy it, but it was basically lecture. Survey course, I did have discussion sessions, usually once a week, but that was in the early years, and later I decided that wasn't very productive. And so I pretty much lectured, but I tried to do it as a story and just flow through. And that's about it. I always asked essay questions because I think you need an essay question to see that the students understand and can relate the material. And I had 2 classes that begged me to give them a multiple choice test because they thought the essays were terrible, too hard. I gave them multiple choice tests, and they said, never do this again, never. And so anyway, essay test, because you could at least express yourself, and you could bring out points. And I didn't care whether you liked or disliked what I liked. I mean, I taught Civil War, and people said, who's a better general, Lee or Grant? You know, I didn't care what they said. If you like Lee, say so. If you like Grant, say so. Just give me reasons why you think so, because you go into a library, and over here there's a book that says Lee's the best, and over here is a book that said Grant's the best. Historians don't agree. So Just tell me what you think. That's what history's about, taking facts, putting them together, making an argument that you can sustain, that will help you in life, because you take these things and put them into meaningful form. And so my favorite president was Theodore Roosevelt. And I always told him, you don't have to like Theodore Roosevelt. I think they didn't believe me, because I think only one student ever said anything bad about Theodore Roosevelt, but that's okay. And it was just, you express yourself for what you think. I'm not here to indoctrinate. I'm here to educate. If you believe what you believe and have reasons for believing it, that's fine.
Let's see. So 50 years of teaching here. What's you on year 1 versus you year 50? What do you think is the biggest change?
Well, let's go back to the year 1, just to describe what it was like here. You asked why I stayed. When I came here, the art building, of course, wasn't here. The Mott building wasn't here. Shippard wasn't here. The half of the library wasn't here. When I came, they're tearing down Mathers, so all the classrooms are gone. That was the classroom building. And so my first class that I taught here was Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. We had Saturday classes. The president didn't want students to leave campus on the weekend, so he had Saturday classes. So my first class is Saturday at 9. And it's in the basement of Blair. That was a classroom. Nobody told me a 9 o'clock class. I asked you, what time does a 9 o'clock class start? You'd probably say 9 o'clock. Here it's 9:10, at least it was back then. I didn't know that. I got there at 9 o'clock and virtually nobody was in the room. And I thought, I know it's Saturday morning at 9 o'clock, but then they start pouring in. And then I realized later, someone told me, well, you start 10 minutes after the hour. So, oh, great start. But I taught in the basement of Blair, I taught in the basement of Dole, and I taught in what is now the church, the City on the Hill. That was the college-owned theater, and we'd teach big classes there. So you'd walk from the basement here to the basement there to the theater there. That was your classroom. My office was the bedroom of a house. The house stood where the new art building is. And we all one had a kitchen as a room, one had a nice fireplace in his office. I had a bedroom, a couple others had bedrooms. That was our office for 3 years until this building opened. So it was an interesting 3 years, just kind of wandering. But you watch the building go up and you're just kind of waiting to get your chance to get into it. Fortunately, the dean was a history teacher, and I think he saw that we got the 3rd floor in the Mott building, which I always thought was the best. The 1st floor, you're underground, and it's damp and cool. 2nd floor, it's too busy, because everybody comes in on that floor. 4th floor, the ceilings are lower, and you're up so high, you look out and you see ants out there. 3rd floor, it's got all the features. It's isolated, it's higher ceilings. You look out, you can actually see people. I could look out and see every building on campus except the art building. I could see the church, I could see Dole, I could see, well, it was the CC at the time, Collegiate Center, now Kirk. I could see the music building, I could see Blair, I could see McKay. And so we had a nice office complex. I could look out and see everything, and it was a beautiful campus. And so everything was just ideal. Students, I thought the students were great. When I came here, they were interested in really, everything was, I had no problems with anybody. What happened was, of course, the Vietnam War was on. And so when the Vietnam War was on, then a lot of people came to college to avoid the draft. And so our enrollment went up. And that was still fine. I mean, the students were good still. Then the war ended and the enrollment went down. Not too bad, but it did go down. In fact, it got to the point where we had a committee set up to decide what's going to happen when the enrollment drops too low. How do we save the school? Who goes? and I was on the committee, and we had, well, if we get to this number, we're going to have to cut, and we just, you know, an English professor. If we get to this level, we'll get a biology professor. If we get to this level, and we never got to those levels, but we had a master plan. And we didn't say who we'd cut, but it was pretty obvious. If you're the newest member of the English department, you're probably going to be the one that gets cut, but we didn't mention anybody. But that was one of those just-in-case scenarios, but we never used it because enrollment then suddenly started going up and just kept going up. I thought the best classes I had were early 90s. I really liked, I had a great group in 92 and 93. It was some of my favorite students, but I had good classes all along. I stopped teaching full-time in 2009, mainly because the state government started to interfere too much in education. They wanted, what are you doing this for? Why are you doing that? I taught for 45 years. I'd won teaching awards. I thought I was doing a good job. And they wanted me to explain, if I showed a video, why am I showing it? What is the student supposed to know about it? How are you going to test that? And all these little details that I thought, I know what I want. I just didn't like the state telling me. I had to tell them and explain it and write everything out and virtually explain everything I'm going to do in my hour, what I'm going to cover, when I'm going to cover it, and all the rest of it. It just got very intrusive. And I thought when Bush started this education interest and the state getting involved to improve education, it was a good thing, but it didn't turn out to be good for, I don't think, in college. I don't know what it's like in the grade schools, but in college I didn't like it at all because it got too oppressive. And when I came here, the faculty handbook was about that wide, about that tall, and about that thick. It had about 12 pages. One page was the president's picture, one was the faculty list, and the rest of it was all the handbook, all the things in it. When I left, it was regular sized paper about that thick of all these restrictions and all these details, and it just becomes more and more oppressive. It was much better to teach in the beginning when things were more free flow, but the students were fine. It's just, I didn't care for all the involvement that the state had. The college was coming up with, well, we have to cover this, and I understand why they do it. You have to protect yourself and do this, but I don't like having to respond to that. So I would have stayed 50 full-time, but I decided I'll go for my 50, but I'll take the last 6 as part-time. Then I don't have committees, I don't have to do all these things. Still had some control over me, but I was basically much easier 6 years.
The students that most stood out to you, what kind of separated them?
Oh, I don't know. They just inquiring minds, willing to do the research, got involved. I mean, it's amazing what impact you have. You don't realize it, and I didn't. But one student, while I was here in my office, and I get a phone call from admissions, can you meet with so-and-so at 4 o'clock? And I thought, I don't even know so-and-so. Why would I want to? And 4 o'clock, I was going to be gone by then. I said, no. And then I thought, well, see what it's about. So I called her back and said, I'd be here. And the student came, and he was effusive. I was the best professor he ever had. He's got his daughter here. He wants her to come here. Oh, you got to take Dr. Walker. He was just, and he went on and on. And it turned out I had him for 1 semester in the survey course. We'd have 40 people in that course. He was 1. He took it 1 semester because he couldn't get more. He was a different major, and he took it late in his career here. But he went on and on about how great he was, and I had no idea I had such an impact on him. I thought, I didn't even know this guy until he came in and started explaining it. So it's just one of those things you don't realize the impact you have on people, even if you had it. I've had others basically the same. I just had a guy who was here this summer visiting someone else, and he wanted to see me. And I was such a great professor, and I remembered him, but I didn't know that he, you never realize how the impact you have, and it's a very satisfying feeling to know that you help people. So a lot of people that were good and dedicated, you don't even realize. The others get involved, and we had a Phi Alpha Theta, which was a History Association Honor Society. When I wanted to get that started, the dean was a little suspicious. He didn't want another fraternity on campus. And I said, this is an honorary. We're not going to have a building. We're not going to. And so he was happy. And so that organization, people would, with grades high enough, would join that, and we'd do things together, go to conferences and meet and just, celebrate. And so there was a chance to get to know the students. And it's the ones you get to know that you really, obviously, remember more. The others you liked, and there were some good students, and I can remember them, but I didn't get to know them that well. I had one student come back, and he wanted something, and so we met, and it turned out he liked baseball, and I liked baseball. And I taught a history of baseball for many years here. And we started talking baseball. We went on for an hour and talked baseball. And he later wrote me and said he wished he'd talked to me more on campus because he didn't realize, how we could be that close. And it was, again, I didn't realize he was interested in that either. We just would talk in class and we'd see each other outside, but it wasn't a really close relationship. But what's good about Olivet is you'd have a student in one class, and then you'd have them in another class. You'd have them in, even if they weren't majors, they might take 2 or 3 classes. And you'd see them in the hall, and they'd see each other in the hall, and there was a camaraderie that among the students that I really enjoyed. And we were blessed because of a former student, Dennis Dougherty, donated money to create a lounge in our office complex. We have 3 offices on one side, 3 on the other. In the center, there's this big room, which some people use for other purposes, but we use it as a lounge. He gave us money. We bought furniture, and we had a place for students to come in and talk, and the faculty could come in, and it was a very informal get-together, and students would just drift in and out. It was wonderful, absolutely wonderful. You'd see students and get to talk to them, and on a basis that you wouldn't have otherwise. So there's just a warm atmosphere here. I liked it. And I like the fact that in the college, when I came here, of course it's true today, but you had, the size of the faculty we had would be the size of the Department of History in Michigan or Michigan State. And here it was the entire faculty. And so I could talk to a biologist, I could talk to someone in music, I could talk to someone in government, all these people I could talk to. It was like having an encyclopedia. And it was just so wonderful because and not just your little niche here talking, all history. You could talk to all these different people, and it was wonderful.
How do you want your teaching to be remembered?
If it's remembered at all, that'd be something, wouldn't it? I don't know. I just wanted the students to appreciate that there are no answers. Again, historians, when they write things, everything looks so neat because it's this, 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 and this. But they're choosing what they want to make their case. I mean, it's just like in the election. Some people said, this candidate was the best. Some said this was the best. You got to always have that. And you'll have people who will write books that, again, FDR was great and FDR wasn't. And that was the type of question I'd ask. How would you grade FDR as president? What grade would you give him? Or, was the New Deal successful or a failure? and just express yourself. So I just want students to remember that the idea was that they had a role to play too. They weren't just there to parrot back to me, they were there to think what I gave them, what they read, and put it all together in some meaningful form. So I think they had a responsibility, and I'd like them to think about that. I think I was, well, the history department had a reputation as being one of the tougher departments. They used to do, and I don't know if they do anymore, I haven't been around, they used to do surveys of faculty to see which departments, what grade average they were. Excuse me. History department was on the low end of the grades. So I don't think students were taking the classes just because they thought they were going to be easy, but I think they took it because they got something out of it and liked it, and I think that was true of all of us. And at one time there were 3 of us teaching, and we just had good enrollment, and I think we did a good job, and I don't know anything else to be remembered by.
What do you feel like has been your biggest success?
No, I don't know. Again, I've won, I don't know, 9 or 10 teaching awards, I can't remember. I was a second recipient of the Livingston Award, which is the highest award they can give. So I think at least the students and faculty appreciated what I did and was honored in that sense. And it's nice to have those awards. We had a speaker come back, and I mean, I knew him well. I mean, he was a major, but I didn't know there was anything between us. But he said, when I was leaving after his talk, we had dinner, and then as we were leaving, he said, "Never doubt the influence you have on people." And I mean, that was a wonderful thing to hear, that I had influence on people, and others have said it, but it just, every time I hear it, I think, I didn't know I had that impact on that person, and it's just a wonderful thing to think that you impacted people. And I've had people say, "I teach like you do," and I thought, I teach like everybody teaches. I don't know how anybody teaches history other than the way I do it, but I took your style, and had a man went to Atlanta and taught for 37 years, and he came back and said how he taught like I did. And I thought, oh, yeah, doesn't everybody? Not that mine is great, I don't know how you teach history except the way I taught it. It's a story, and you tell a story. And
So you've served others, for decades through your teaching, and you're continuing to, serve the community as part of city council. So what compels you to, give of yourself in that way?
Well, I think, first of all, I wanted to go into politics when I was young. One of the reasons I went to South Dakota was I wanted to go into politics in South Dakota. Got my master's at South Dakota. And never got into politics in South Dakota. I was so busy doing all the work I had to do, I didn't get into politics, but I always wanted to. And I always thought I had some ability, and I wanted to contribute. I think people should do what they can to improve the world. And one of the council members once asked me if I wanted to run, and I said, sure. And that was in 1977. And I got elected in 77. And I've served now that I'm in my 38th year. Now I know if you count from 77, 38 doesn't come to 2024. I dropped off for 9 years in the teens. I thought, well, I retired from the college. I thought I'd retire from City Hall and just kind of enjoy life. And I was retired for 9 years. And then Laura, the mayor, Laura Barlin Moss now, asked me if I'd come back and serve, and I said, yeah. So, and I've been on that now since 2019. So I've run I've run for office 10 times, got elected 10 times, so it's kind of pleasant to think you can do that. But I just think I have some ability, and I'm concerned, and I'm willing to help. And if I can do that, I should. I'm a member of the Lions Club because I think you should help and do things for the community. So,
what sort of a role do you think, like a person's community and the people they're around plays in, you know, their experience?
The people in the community, what role do they play?
Yeah, like what role does, you know, being in a community, like being in a strong community like Olivet, what does that play in someone's life?
Well, of course, it depends on the person. I think it's a great place to grow up. My son, of course, he went to work in Battle Creek, but when he retired in Battle Creek, he moved next door to us. He liked the town, he liked the area, and so he settled here, and he's very happy. Our daughter got the western bug that we had, and she's lived in Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and now Washington. But I mean, she likes the small towns. And I think the small towns, on the one hand, you think everybody knows your business, and you kind of resent that. On the other hand, everybody cares about you. And there's a concern, and the government is responsive. I'm always impressed when the college or the high school or some group comes in, the Chamber of Commerce just came in. We want to have a parade. Okay, we'll do that. We'll put up the barricades. We'll do that. I mean, it's very responsive. Small towns are very responsive to the needs of the citizens. And I think that's appreciated by everybody. And I think the citizens realize that and they take pride in the community too.
What sort of legacy do you think you'll leave here at Olivet?
I don't know. I had never thought about it. I just like to think that people thought I did a good job, that I don't know. Legacy sounds so impressive. I'm not certain one has one. But again, I just did my best. I tried to bring out the best in the students. I tried to get them to see history as not just something you remember dates. That's the trouble with multiple choice tests. Well, I know the date, but I don't know what it means. I know the law, but I don't know what it said. I don't know what it did. So I tried to get them to appreciate that history is more than just names and dates, that it's something you can utilize. And even if you don't go into history, and of course a lot of our majors went into law, government. One I just talked to is a president of a hospital, summer insurance, before we had an insurance program here, they used a history major. So they go into other fields because they've learned to read, write, and think. And that's what I hope I was able to help them with, because that's what you get. You don't have to, people fear history. What are you going to do, teach? No, you're going to learn the skills. If you change jobs like they say you're going to change 11 times in your lifetime, that's the latest figure I've seen. Yeah, but then you need the skills. You don't need to know everything about one narrow thing. You need skills of thinking, writing, reading, and analyzing, this kind of thing. And that's what history can do for you. And that's what I tried to do for them. And I'd like to think that I did that.
Is there anything that you think education and like higher education in general is missing out on right now or overlooking?
I don't know that much about what's going on anymore. I think they need to be more tolerant. I think the whole world needs to be more tolerant. That's what I see. There's a lack of tolerance in the world. I told that to a friend of mine who was very liberal, and I said, we need more tolerance. And he said, we do. And that amazed me because I didn't think he'd say that. And then he said, we got to get rid of Fox News. And I thought, that's not tolerance, getting rid of the other side. I think what colleges need to do, and I don't know how much it's working. I mean, I know of no problem here. You know, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with what the now university's doing, but some colleges, they have this friction between the two sides, and I don't know how much the administration is supporting the freedom of speech that they need to do, freedom of expression that seems to be lacking in so many ways. I wish something could be done about that, because I may not agree with you, but I don't mind you saying what you think. If you'll listen to me, I'll listen to you. And difference of opinion can be tolerated where reason is free to combat it. That's what Thomas Jefferson said. And it's true. You say you, and I say me, and then we get together. I remember the days politically when the head of the Republican Democratic Party would get into a car and they'd drive someplace and they'd settle all their issues because you want this, I want that. Okay, you know, they'd work it out. Today you can't do that. There's no willingness to both sides, and I don't know if colleges are doing their part to stress that we need to listen to both sides. I don't care what side you're on. I want the other side to talk too. So if they're doing that, and I suppose most of them are, you only hear about the ones that don't. That's always what you hear, the negative. So I assume most colleges are doing the job properly, and I'm sure Olivet is. It did as a college, and I'm sure it is as a university. It's only the few that you've heard about recently with, you know, demonstrations and all that that probably are tarnishing the true development of tolerance.
All right, and I just got one more. So through your whole career, your whole life, if you had to pinpoint like kind of one takeaway to give an audience listening, what would that be?
I don't know. I never thought of it. I don't know what, really don't have much of an answer for that. The takeaway of my life? Well, I guess, again, it's, you start out, again, I wanted to get out of school. I didn't want to go to school. High school, I hated it. And all of school, I tried to do my best, but I just didn't like it, too regimented. I got to college and suddenly I changed. Excuse me. So I suppose the understanding that what comes, respond to it, learn from it, and go with it or go against it as you see fit. But don't let things discourage you. Don't get too rooted into one thing. Be willing to try things. Like I say, I wasn't going to go to school. I was going to work in a food store. And then, well, I'll go to school. And then I just couldn't stop going to school. And I wasn't going to teach. I thought that was a horrible job. Then I became a teacher, and I loved it. I don't know what I would have done if I hadn't taught. I can't think of any job I would have liked better. You can talk to people. You get it's just a relaxed atmosphere, a give and take, and students come into your office and talk. So it's the unpredictability of things, and all what you'd have to do is be free to respond to that unpredictability and test and see, well, no, I don't like that. Yes, I do like this. And who knows where you're going, but just make the best of what it is, and it'll take you someplace.
That was a pretty great answer. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, no, not that I think of. I just was very glad I was here, glad I could teach 50 years, enjoyed every minute of it. Well, I mean, never presidents and deans from sometimes. They weren't the greatest, but overall it's been wonderful. And I say, I wish I'd gone to a school like this, a smaller school. Not because I didn't get a good education, but because the whole atmosphere, the interchanging between faculty and students. When I went to Indiana University, I had a lecture in an auditorium, and there were TVs mounted on the wall as you went down, so you could see what that little person down there was doing. And that was, you know, he certainly didn't know me, and I didn't know him. I come here and you talk to people, you know them. You get to know this. If they want to know you, I mean, if they don't, they can avoid you, but if they want to get to know you, you get to know them. And it's kind of like a family, and it was a wonderful atmosphere here. And it was just, again, I don't know where I'd rather have been than here.